going to need is a carpet knife or a box cutter knife, and a nice sharp new blade on that. Then a flat piece of wood, and what I have here is a piece of bamboo. It's like a bamboo butter knife kind of a thing. I actually found it in Japantown in San Francisco. There's a hardware store that's basically across the street from the Kabuki Hotel. So I found these. I bought a few of these guys, and they're just really perfect. As you can see, there's a little notch that I make on both sides. One's further in, one's further out. And that's so that I can fit it nicely under the Kinar without too much stress on the Kinar. And I can find that notch with the knife and cut through. And then the knife actually sits in the groove so that it doesn't slip off of that. I want it to be in the groove. Of course, you also don't want it to go all the way through, right? So that sits underneath there. You find that notch, and you just are pulling and guiding. This is similar to the tool that they use in India. It's just a travel-friendly version. So, to start with, of course, we have to be careful in this process. But for this baya, it's turned out okay. I put this head on, and it's starting to break in a little bit, but it's still a little bit muted. The Kinar is a little bit on the big side. It's not always a problem just because it's a big Kinar, but if your experience of the tone is that it's muffled, then this process can help a little bit release more vibration of the head. And this is also really important skill to have, even for cutting off a very small portion of the Kinar, because sometimes you have that edge of the Kinar and it's kind of, a little bit curved or has gotten super duper thin and is kind of flapping around a little bit. So you can get some vibration out of that. You can also have that curve muting the drum. Sometimes it's curving up, and then your fingers are kind of catching on it, or it's making a snapping sound. Right, so anyway, also, if you get a little slice for any reason, sometimes you get a little cut before that continues and rips the whole Kinar. You can use this technique to kind of carve out that area, and it won't affect the tuning very much if it's slightly uneven Kinar, but ideally we have a nice even circle. In this case, the Kinar is a little bit out of round. It's not completely even all the way around, so I can maybe straighten that out. So I'm going to put the piece of wood, my little bamboo butter knife, under the Kinar and trace the notch in as far as I'm thinking I want to cut the Kinar. And in this case, I'm just going to do a little bit. Can always do it again. And find that notch. So I'm poking a hole right there into the Kinar and not into the head. Okay, and then I'm just going to guide it with my fingers. Okay, just go slow. And you can kind of see the beginning of that cut. Okay, so this is really a small amount that I'm doing for demo purposes. Make sure you get that there. And I'll just go around, guide it with both hands. You don't want to pull too hard with your knife hand, just a little bit, because you don't want to pull the knife off of the piece of wood for obvious reasons. Okay, so and I'm just gonna come out of the cut there. All right, you see that? So in that situation, I just cut off a little bit. Let's say that was curved up or a little bit damaged area. So I just clean that up, and I'll just take off this little bit here. So that's in the case of a damaged area. You can just clean off a little bit there. Now if I do a little bit more aggressive cut, so I'm going to take off a little more. I've already taken a little bit off there, so I'm just going to start with a little bit and it'll expand. So what I'm doing is I can't gauge it from the center of the syahi here. I have to gauge how it looks from the rim to where I'm cutting. So on the bai it's slightly different than on the dayan, where I can use the syahi as a guide. Just go slow. So if your knife is not sharp enough, you'll be kind of wrestling with it. And that's when you can slip. Yet, knock on bamboo, I've never slipped yet. I'm cutting lots of drums. And part of that is because I've done a lot of my Guruji Zakir Hussein's drums on stage before a concert or an intermission to clean up something, or he's had Kinars that were starting to break, and so I need to do this process. And I definitely don't want to mess that up. So I've gotten fairly consistently safe at it. There we go. Another piece of art you can use. And let's look at a high drum for a sec. Okay, same thing. This is not too bad. Sometimes you'll find the Kinar, you can see where the Kinar was. There's a black line on the sewer there. That's where this Kinar came up to. And then they cut it back to there. So I'm just going to cut it back a little bit, but on occasion you'll get a drum from a maker, and it'll be like all the way out to there, super thick Kinar, and unless the sound is great, sometimes it is. You can cut it back a bit and release some of the high end. Same thing goes for that string, as we talked about in the other maintenance video. That string helps raise up the Kinar. It releases the vibration of the head, but it also releases a little bit more of the high end. Okay, so it can really be effective, especially on the high drum. All right. So I'm just going to cut back a little bit. A little bit goes a long way on the high drum. The low drum, usually you've got a bit more to work with. All right, so I'm going to trace that in just a little bit. Now you can do this on a drum that is fully pegged up and tuned up to your D or C or whatever it is. There is more tension, so you have to be careful not to stress out. You don't want your cutting to rip the Kinar at all, of course. So you can also do it when you're in the process of pulling a drum, and there's a little less tension on the head before the pegs go in. but you do want the head to have some tension to it so you can really tell how much you're cutting and how much is needed. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to take maybe a 1/8 of an inch off of here. And in this case, I can kind of help trace my circle by looking at and feeling the syahi. Another piece of art.